Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I think I'm like other people where you want to be healthy. You want to make the right choices when either you're going out to dinner or you're shopping and just trying to decide what to buy in the grocery store, the supermarket. I'm struggling with that because I want to make the right choice. That's my current goal. If you're like that, you want to be healthy, maybe live a more holistic life. She can help you with that, especially if you are looking at the vegetarian or vegan lifestyle. And she's with Plantae Nutrition. Tara Gallimore is with us. Welcome back. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm well. I'm well. This is fairly new for me. It's only been in the past, I want to say a couple of months where I've really started looking at what I'm buying, what I'm eating. I haven't crossed the bridge over to the vegan side yet. Could happen soon. But that being said, I have lots of questions. Like example, I like making smoothies. I got turned on to that.
Ooh.
And I keep it simple. It could be, some whey protein or some type of protein powder. I'll add some ice in there, maybe a banana, some blueberries, maybe some strawberries, things like that.
Mhm.
Is it okay to buy frozen fruit? Is it the same nutritional aspect as if you're buying it fresh?
That's a fantastic question. So, yeah, I would say that frozen fruit, very, very similar in nutritional value, if not almost identical to fresh fruit.
Okay.
I think one of the benefits, well, I think there are actually so many benefits of frozen fruit. One of them, when it comes like nutritionally speaking, is that they tend to pick the fruit when it's perfectly ripe and then they freeze it shortly afterwards. Whereas depending on where you're living, sometimes like for me, I'm in Canada, right? So sometimes the fruit that you're getting, it doesn't grow here locally. So it's being picked before it becomes ripe and then it's being shipped and it kind of ripens on the way while it's being shipped. Whereas the benefit of frozen fruit, when you're not talking about seasonal things, is that you can buy them frozen and they were picked when they were ripe. So they still have a fantastic nutritional value. And sometimes when you're buying frozen fruit out of season, it's got a better nutritional value than trying to buy that same fruit fresh because it would have been shipped for so long and picked early, if that makes sense.
Yeah, crystal clear. And especially, for me, I add ice to add a little crunchiness to it and a little, more like a milkshake. You're getting that because it's already frozen. So there you go.
Yes.
And I just said the quality sometimes is better, but I always wondered whether, and again, try to find organic and again, find a good deal. There's some places I've been to where a tiny little bag, I'm like, seriously, that's what that costs? And then I'll go into another store and it's like 4 times the amount, 3 times the amount in a bigger bag, right around the same price, both
Mhm.
organic. Like,
Mhm.
shop. You'll find deals.
Definitely, definitely. It is wild how much some stores will mark things up and how drastic of a difference it is when you shop around and look at different places. I'm lucky enough to live within walking distance of about, I'd say maybe 5 or 6 different grocery stores at least. And so I'm constantly looking at the prices of one thing at the various different stores to find out what's going to be the best deal.
Nice. So how about some other tips? Any other thoughts you have that we should know? I'm in the supermarket. We're in the grocery store. We're walking around, have our cart.
Mm.
I could maybe going through the vegetable section. Um, and one other, I just want to bounce back to the frozen fruit.
Yeah.
Stuff goes bad so fast.
Yes.
Like I'm forever throwing stuff out. I'm like, I go in there. I'm like, seriously, this is this is bad already. Can I just really? And it's just a waste of money. So frozen, I think that's a huge, huge benefit. What about
Mhm.
lettuce? I'm a big fan of lettuce, loving it. I mean, it's so basic, but I just love the taste of it. Uh,
Mm.
difference between bagged lettuce that is, already washed as opposed to, let's say, a head of lettuce. Any thoughts there?
I would say they're both very, very similar. I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's funny because I also often get the question about cooking vegetables, and is it better to eat them cooked versus raw? This kind of reminds me a little bit of that question, because cooking vegetables, it makes the tiniest difference in the nutrient content. It'll very, very slightly reduce it. For some vegetables like tomatoes, it actually increases the nutrient content of certain things.
Oh, wow.
But for the most part, you'll get like a tiny little decrease. But then when you eat it cooked, your body actually can absorb the nutrients a little bit better. And so it makes up for that decrease. So what I typically like to suggest to people, whether you're trying to decide between raw and cooked, or whether you're trying to decide between pre-washed or pre-chopped or not, I would go with the option that you know you're going to eat. So the option that's going to taste better for you, the one that's going to be more within your budget, and the one that's actually going to get you to the point of taking that vegetable home and cooking it and making it into a full meal.
Okay. And you just brought back a memory. Somebody told me that if you put it in a blender, you juice it, smoothie, whatever, it's not as good because you're not getting the same fiber. Like you're changing things. And I'm thinking, is it really that? I mean, it's just, to me, it's the same. Is it? What are your thoughts?
When it comes to a smoothie, it's identical. It's really just, I mean, you're taking the whole blueberry or whatever it is, you're putting it into the blender, and yeah, it's being mechanically kind of chopped up, blended up, but that's what would happen in your mouth anyway.
Right.
So not much of a difference there with like a smoothie versus a whole fruit.
Gotcha. How about some other thoughts, things that we should be mindful of when we're shopping, making
Yeah. So I'm trying to think when people are going grocery shopping, and it really depends on what type of a cook you are.
I'm not. Keep going.
Say that again. You're not?
Not
But you're making salads though with the lettuce. That's something.
I'm slowly moving forward there, but I never claimed to be a chef, cook, or anything like that. Maybe one day, but I still have to shop like anybody else.
Definitely. Well, then I think it depends on how you're preparing your food. Let's put it that way. It depends on how you're preparing your food and how you like to prepare your food. Some people prefer to kind of go to the grocery store, be inspired by what they see at the store, by the veggies, what looks good, what looks fresh, what's within their budget, what do they feel like, and then come home and create meals with that. And that's a perfectly valid way of doing things. I think it works out really well. But I also think that if you're going to do that, you have to have a really great stocked pantry. You want to have a fully stocked pantry, all the spices. You want to have all the dry goods, the rice, you want to have quinoa, you want to have beans, you want to have all these different things already at home, so that when you come home with things that you just kind of randomly picked, when you add those to all the things you already have, you can make full meals out of it. Yeah. And go ahead.
I love that idea. Because that is, you're ready to go. And almost like it's fresh, a fresh thought when you're going to cook something. Yeah, I love that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think other people prefer to plan a little bit more, in the sense that they'll want to decide in advance, what am I going to cook this week? Then they're going to make a grocery list. And then when they go to the grocery store, they are pretty much only buying what's on the list, maybe one or two other things that they think of, but it's more planned, I suppose. And so the chances in that case of getting home and not having all the ingredients you need for all the meals that you want to cook, super low, because you wrote down everything that you needed, you made a list, you bought the list. Whereas with the previous way of doing things, which is to go and just kind of be inspired by what you see, it can be more fun, more spontaneous. But if you don't have a well-stocked pantry, you might end up taking multiple trips to the grocery store, or you might just be like, oh, I can't be bothered, I don't have all the things I need, I'll cook another time.
Love that. Yeah. And it's kind of exciting when you know that you have something, when it's like, oh, I didn't know I had that in the pantry. Oh, I didn't know I had that there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think having a well-stocked pantry is a good tip for anyone.
I'm working on that. I moved not too long ago. That was last year, but just it takes time, because if you're not, an accomplished chef or do it on a regular basis, you're not going to be picking up those spices, those seasonings and things like that. I love garlic. It is like I'll put it on anything. I hear it's
Mhm.
very healthy. How about some of those spices, seasonings that, from a healthy nutrition side that you would look at and say, yeah, that's a good idea. What are your thoughts there?
Mm. So I would say that just about all spices have benefits, like health benefits. And so I think again, I think it's very, very similar to what I was saying about like cooking things versus having things raw. I think seasoning things in a way that taste good to you is the most reliable way to get them in you. Because I think like what a lot of people have issues with is that actual like cooking or preparing of the meals part, and they end up going out to eat often because they didn't necessarily have a plan for what it is that they were going to make. And so it's like we can think about individually speaking, like this spice might have like 2% more nutrients than this spice. But if you don't end up eating the spice because you had no time to plan, then it almost doesn't matter if one thing has like even 50% more than the other thing if you don't get it in you. So I feel like yeah, I feel like focusing on things that you really like, if there's a specific type of cuisine that you love, like say Indian cuisine, then it might be a good idea for you to stock up on things like turmeric and cumin and coriander. And yeah, like having in your cupboards like not ginger because usually that's in the fridge, but yeah, cans of tomatoes, just kind of rice, things that are going to go well, chickpeas. They
Hmm.
just keep coming to me like lentils and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like if you know that there's a certain type of food that you love, making sure that you have the different ingredients, whether it's spices, whether it's canned veggies, whatever, so that when you're ready to cook something, you have most of what you need already. And it's not this big ordeal of having to run around the city to different stores.
Yeah, it takes the fun away.
Yeah.
I want to cook. I want to get right to it. How about hummus? Are you a big fan?
Huge fan. I love it.
The chickpeas. So I was wondering. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think hummus is delicious. I actually had some for lunch yesterday.
Oh wow. Yep. Have it in my fridge. And sometimes it's just I need something, just a little pick me up, little snack, and then I'll just open it up and just I don't even need to put it on anything. I'll just take a spoon and go in, I'm good. So many different types, roasted red pepper, and it's so
Oh,
much flavor.
definitely, definitely. Yes.
So you work with a lot of people, including athletes, on their performance and their nutrition. If somebody was to pivot over to the vegan side, become a
Mhm.
vegetarian, either of the two, what would the process be? So it's like baby steps, kind of slowly getting into it. I don't ever think that we ever talked about that. We talked about the benefits and the difference between the two, but if you wanted to, how would you slowly get into it where it's not going to be a total shock to your system?
That's a really good question, Steve. I think it's really, really important to take it slow. I've heard of people being very successful with like an overnight transition, like one day to the next. But I mean, studies show that people who do it very, very slowly over time are a lot more successful in terms of sticking with it in the long term if this is something that's important to you that you really want to do. And I think that you can start by I think meat is probably the easiest thing to replace. And it depends, right? If you're going vegan, some people like I don't know, I've worked with people, and this is rare, but I've worked with people who like don't like cheese, for example. So for them, getting rid of dairy products and replacing them with something else, like replacing dairy milk with soy milk,
Right.
or because they don't like cheese, they don't really feel the need to replace it. Um, Choosing something that you personally feel would be easy to replace. And that's going to be individual. But for a lot of people, it's going to be meat. Sometimes they start with red meat, but you start with one thing and you start to eat it less or you start to cut it out completely, but you're still including other things. And that way you can replace it with other things. You can slowly learn new recipes. And then over time, once you've gotten to the point where you've replaced that one thing and you're feeling comfortable, then you can go to the next thing and try replacing that thing.
Hmm. And once you do it, you realize this was easy. Like I have not had milk
Mm.
that long because I pivoted over to almond milk. Maybe it's soy milk, like them both. The only thing I will say is that, and I'd love your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
When I look at, regular milk, there's an expiration date. When I open up a like almond milk, it'll say consume within 7 days. And I'm like, really? Like, I'm not going to be able to drink, a half a gallon in that period of time.
Yeah.
Does it say that? Any idea? Is it that, bacteria could be an issue? What do you think about that?
Jeez. I am not 100% sure. I'm guessing that it would be a food safety thing, but I drink so much soy milk and I drink it so fast.
Oh,
But if for the most part, I'd say I get through mine before the 7 days. But there's been times where I haven't and it's been fine. And that's not to say that's not to say to ignore best
I've had it
before
for
dates and
weeks.
stuff.
I'll admit weeks until I realized that it said it on there, and then even
Oh yeah.
so, I almost ignore it. Um,
Yeah.
Never had an issue there.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to look at it even closer. Is it saying best when used within 7 days after opening? Well, all right, that's your opinion. Manufacturer who wants you to buy more. It doesn't mean, you must finish it before this time. Same thing with the expiration date or sell by date on a, conventional container of milk. You could go 4 days past and
Mm.
sniff the milk and it's like, seems good to me. Or the other way around, I had some ravioli and I didn't even hit the expiration date, but I had opened it up. It was a huge family size one. This was just yesterday. I would even show you it was legit green. I'm not
And
even
you only opened it yesterday?
No, I had opened it a while ago, not that far back,
Okay.
but the expiration date wasn't for a while. But I guess it was because I'm gonna see if I can pull up a picture. Oh, there it is right there. Uh, I don't know if you could see this, but it's like you can. I don't know.
Oh, that's green.
It
It's
was.
green.
Yeah, it was like in full blown mold mode. And I'm like,
Shoot.
what is that really? And so I guess, sometimes you have to watch it if it's sitting in your refrigerator. Again, it was open for a little while. Yeah, I
Mm,
call it a week and a half, maybe.
yeah.
But maybe, humidity, everything changes. My assumption is throw it in the refrigerator. It's going to be good, but I can't assume that. And I just heard this the other day. I'd be throwing my tomatoes in the refrigerator, thinking that would extend the life. But then I heard that you're not supposed to do that.
Oh, yeah, if you want to retain the nice texture of the tomato, you want to keep it out of the fridge. But I have heard that once you've realized that there's no way you're going to be able to eat that tomato before it goes bad, then
Yeah.
you can throw it in the fridge. And I think it'll extend the life a little bit, but it will negatively affect the texture. It'll make it a bit more mealy. So if you're cooking it, probably not a big deal. But if you're going to put it in a salad, it's not a huge texture difference, but some people would really not like that.
Yeah, like I throw them in a salad, just like a cherry tomato, and you see a little bit of shriveling on the outside. I'm sure it's perfectly fine, but it's a mind thing. Like I don't want to eat it. I'm gonna pick the ones that aren't doing that. Tara, any other thoughts that things, little tips and things that we should be aware of when we're shopping, whether it's a vegan diet or not?
Yeah, I'm thinking when it comes to vegan and it comes to shopping, especially for someone who's a new vegan, probably being aware of how to read the ingredients list so that you know which items are animal-based items. For example, lactose is an ingredient that's found in milk. It's the type of sugar that's found in milk. And sometimes they'll randomly add it to chips. I'm guessing it's for the sweetness, the flavor. I'm not 100% sure. Never talked to a chip manufacturer about this, but it's something that I see relatively often, like milk ingredients in things like chips, like salt and vinegar chips, something that you totally wouldn't expect. So I do find that it can be helpful to kind of get familiar with the different names for different types of animal products so that you can recognize them. And also, oh man, yeah, sometimes they'll have an allergy statement and it's like the contains versus may contain. And that can be a really helpful thing to just look at really quickly if you're trying to find, does this thing contain milk ingredients? Because if it does, typically it'll say contains milk, seafood, like whatever allergy type things. And then may contain means that they haven't added it, but the facility that it's processed in,
Sure.
maybe it was processed on the same equipment that has those ingredients. And so for a vegan, something like that would be fine. But for someone who has an allergy, they might have to think twice about whether they can tolerate that.
Along the same lines, if you're looking for something organic and you look at the ingredients and it says contains organic ingredients, oh, wow, great. Doesn't mean all of them are.
True.
So got to watch the labeling that it needs to be certified organic. Super, super important. And it takes a lot to get that stamp and a lot of money to be certified.
It's expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can see why they, try to play games and say contains organic ingredients. And then I recently tried a cereal. Somebody actually gave it to me.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it and it looks, hey, this looks pretty good. And it turns out that it looked like it was like a smaller manufacturer. Think big beer and craft beer. If that's my vibe on it. It was from a major cereal manufacturer.
Okay.
All right, nothing wrong with it if it tastes good. But then if you look at the ingredients, it says it contains bioengineered ingredients, or GMO. Actually says it on there. So if you're looking for something that is not engineered, something more organic, so to speak, got to read the label. Like there's so many tips, so many tricks that manufacturers fall. And I think it's unfair too that our country allows it. I know you're in Canada. I don't know what the standards are there, but United States, they let a lot of things fly.
Yeah. And it's funny when you say that, the first thing that comes to mind for me of like things that let fly are supplements, actually. And specifically because of my work with athletes, supplement food is one thing. It's generally very well regulated. Supplements, on the other hand, oh man. For example, if I'm working with somebody who's in a sport where they're going to get blood tests to make sure that they're not doping, there are certain supplements that I'll be very hesitant to recommend. And in fact, protein supplements, unfortunately, can be one of those things where, and it's not specific to protein supplements, but unfortunately, it does happen where somebody is not doping, but they're taking a supplement that has an ingredient in it that was never written on the label.
Ooh.
And the nice thing about food is that food says on the label what's in it. Supplements aren't put to that same standard. They're supposed to, but no one is checking. And so when somebody is competing in a sport where they're going to have a blood test, it is super important that the supplements that they're taking have been tested specifically for doping ingredients so that they can have a good blood test and continue to compete in their sport, because nobody wants that, especially when you're not doing it and it happens by accident. I feel like that is the worst.
Can you imagine? It's like being pulled over by a police officer for making an illegal turn, but you didn't do it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or like for drunk driving or something, and all you drank all night was water or something, or juice, and then you find out later someone had snuck alcohol in and you didn't taste it because the juice was so sweet.
Yeah.
So you're sure that you didn't drink because you didn't intend to, but it was someone else who put it in there unbeknownst to you.
Yeah, you're innocent.
Exactly.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Things like that could be in there. Tell us how we reach you. If we want to change our lives, maybe go down the vegan road, even just, get some counseling for nutrition. How do we do that?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at Vegan Sports Nutrition, or you can email me at tara.gallimore.rd, and the RD stands for Registered Dietitian, at gmail.com.
Always great talking with you. I always learn a lot. And you're like a breath of nutrition, fresh air. You really are.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you, Steve. It was really fun talking to you too.
Yeah, we'll catch up soon, okay?
Yes, that sounds great.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.